2025 has finally arrived, and in 2024 we had two very prominent children's gambling simulator games released, Wuthering Waves and Zenless Zone Zero. Now, in most cases, this would only be a cause for celebration because now everyone has more games to play. However, gacha game players are a tribalistic bunch, and after you waste hundreds of hours or steal enough money off your mom's credit card, eventually you find the need to justify yourself somehow. This caused one of the most toxic wars I've ever seen between fandoms over which game was better, with seemingly both at each other's throats when in reality it was just 0.1% of chronically online morons in their communities non-stop trashing each other on Twitter. If someone praised one or criticized the other, you'd be labeled accordingly a curlbot or a Hoyo shill named after the developers Curl Games and Hoyoverse. On the first of every single month, the two would battle it out on the Gacha Games subreddit using the Gacha revenue charts to prove that their game is better than the other or justify why they spent their college fund on a PNG. However, this war is not the point of the video. No, rather the purpose is to illustrate how both of these games have recently done something incredibly impressive that is rarely ever seen in the gacha sphere, and how it could affect the future of high-budget gacha games. And as always, if you enjoy this video, consider subscribing to the channel. I'll be making more videos like this, or go to twitch.tv/Jenazad as I stream daily. Recently, both Wuthering Waves and Zenless Zone Zero have released some enormous changes to their games. Patch 1.4 for Zenless fundamentally overhauled multiple core systems of the game, adding personal character ults, removing the TVs from the main story, and excited a ton of players with events, freebies, and a long-awaited character release. Wuthering Waves released version 2.0, exceeding players' expectations in multiple ways by making a new continent with really unique biomes and a flight system making exploration exciting again, while also writing a well-received story and hyping players with new characters. These two updates were not only the largest to happen to their respective games, but also have done the impossible, actually listening to the players for once, which never happens. This shows they actually can put the effort in and listen to players to make a better experience for everyone, just most gacha games don't. Many players will always settle for less in games they enjoy and often defend them to the death, but through valid criticism and possibly lowering revenues, both games were able to improve to what they are today. Whether players want to admit it or not, if the games had never begun to falter or have to compete with other games, they may never have reached this point. Competition leads to excellence, and with so many games in the market, unless you step it up, you really won't be noticed. Well, unless you're some garbage like Fake Grand Order. However, since their launches, I had seen both communities very defensive of their game against all criticism. Now, obviously, not all of it is valid. Especially after release, people who hate the game will trash it, like me, but then they move on and you'll hear less negativity. As the company, it's important to sift through the criticism and find valid and real ones for games to be better. Both Wuthering Waves and Zenless Zone Zero had previously released fairly close to one another for being such huge releases in the gacha sphere, which immediately started some conflict despite being completely different genres of games. You may as well compare Path of Exile 2 to Marvel Rivals. However, both have one thing I believe was in common. They were both released prematurely. Let me explain by talking about them one at a time. Wuthering Waves on release had numerous issues. It had terrible optimization to the point many couldn't play, and people's phones were basically nuclear reactors Chernobyl 2, and even on PC it could crash or lag. The story and voice acting was abysmal. They had recently rewritten the entire story after negative feedback, and realistically, it's pretty hard to rewrite so much in a short amount of time and have it work, and it really showed. Thank God they had a skip button. As for the voice acting,
Are you feeling alright?
okay. Whoever the VA director was clearly hadn't ever heard English before because even Jeff Bezos sounds more human. While the game overall had a good skeleton, it required large updates to truly become what it was meant to be. Firstly, the 1.1 update added better story, voice acting, and music with Mount Firmament, also a lot of optimization. Then 1.3 pushed the story, music, and area design even further with the Black Shores, and a lot more optimization. Now finally in 2.0, the game has improved almost every single facet from the base game with insane upgrades to exploration and area design, and now the music has elevated itself to bangers you actually enjoy instead of boring noise. Also, this update probably would have been received well by players and considered a great patch normally, but the real cherry on top, the actual best part of the entire update, is the flying system. Genuinely, not even a meme, this actually changes everything. And once you try them, you literally cannot go back to 1.0. That trash-ass no-fly zone feels worse than a Dark Souls swamp. Running is for complete losers, and I'm never going back. Next, Zenless Zone Zero. While the game overall was much more polished than Wuthering Waves on launch, it still had some huge underlying issues. Firstly, it had the TV puzzle system. Everybody loves that system, right? But it was widely hated by players even in previous betas and replaced a large chunk of the gameplay. Also, the average age of players was probably too young to even know what the hell a CRT TV is. So unless they play Smash Bros. Melee, they probably were confused what they were even looking at. This system was so polarizing that they even stated on Twitter they would remove it, only to then retract the statement shortly after due to backlash. Secondly, some of the gameplay decisions made no sense, such as every character sharing the same ultimate bar. You would only ever use the strongest character's ult and never even see the other team members, which anyone who played for an hour could honestly tell you. Duh, you're gonna ult with your strongest member, right? Also, they didn't really have any endgame to play, so there wasn't much point in getting that much stronger, and with no world to explore, you kind of ran out of content really quickly. Now, since the start, they've improved the game in tons of quality of life ways, even allowing you to run around as an 8-foot tall furry if you're really into that. They've also added way more games to the arcade and are slowly fleshing out some more. They added multiple endgame modes to play, including an infinite tower to challenge, finally making a big budget gacha have more difficult replayable content. They also made Miyabi, who is easily the most fun character in the game at the moment, while also power creeping everything previous. Imagine playing Ellen Joe in 2025. They're even making a skin and a story for this sorry ass shark girl, just so you don't forget she exists. Now, you might disagree. You might say the games weren't released early. However, when you compare the 1.0 launches to what they are now, it's night and day. Not only in content, but also in quality of life, core game fixes, and player satisfaction. Most gacha games do not improve to this degree in such a short span. In fact, it is such a stark contrast that I don't even see the two communities fighting anymore because they're actually enjoying their games rather than projecting their dissatisfactions towards another community. Have you ever noticed that when there's no content or anything new in a game, the community starts to get into all sorts of drama and unrest?
Fake news. China.
Obviously, content creators want to make content on that kind of stuff, but also just way more negativity and animosity between players as well. Suddenly, the two games have had the drama well dry up because they actually elevated the levels of their games so players can stop bitching. Now all the drama's in Honkai Star Rail where it belongs.
Okay, listen. Your words, not mine.
Now there is one thing I would like to note for anyone watching. I actually don't enjoy Zenless or play it anymore. However, that doesn't diminish my respect for developers that actually improve their games to please the players. Did they listen and overhaul so much for money and player numbers? Probably, since it never happened in Genshin or Honkai to this degree. However, that doesn't mean the developers aren't also passionate about the game. I don't have to like the game to acknowledge when it does something right. If more developers did this, then the competition would also have to, essentially creating an arms race of better games, bigger patches, and more improvements, otherwise they'd fail. Too many successful games sit on their ass and improve nothing, even when they have the ability to. Just look at Fate Grand Order. The game's garbage and never improves, but still makes so much money just because there was an early game with a huge IP behind it. And look at how many non-gacha games got destroyed by tiny developed indie games last year.
And the game award goes to Balatro. Congratulations again, local fun.
Competition breeds excellence. For us, the players, this is literally a win-win. When players begin to spend and play less, it sends alarm bells to the company to begin change immediately, which let them push out such good updates sooner rather than in 2.0. Also, I just enjoy seeing people genuinely having fun and enjoying their game rather than pretending to like every little thing as though the game's amazing constantly when they give you one pull or some crap. Finally, there's one huge thing that we've all learned together. If players quit or stop spending money, the company actually begins to listen. They have to. Maybe if we all shake hands and agree to quit our favorite gacha games for a month, they'll release the best patch of all time. You in? I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks a bunch for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more, and I hope to see you next time.